If we want to put Arjun Vaidya on the podium of Mumbai HYROX, what is it that your body has to achieve or do to get you there?
I'm physically fit, I eat reasonably clean, etc. All of that. What would a change that you would recommend be in my life? Because maybe I'm just doing the wrong things.
And we're going to be focusing on 6 major systems for the conversation today. Airflow, heart, muscle, metabolic system, fuel, recovery.
I have some questions on recovery.
Tip number 1. If you're in a leadership role, you need to track recovery in the same way as you track performance. So it's showing that you're tearing and working that muscle hard, but hello everyone and welcome. Today I've got someone really special, someone I've been waiting to have a conversation with for a long time. He's a young man. He represents a new generation of Indian founders, 34 years young, already built, exited a successful venture in the healthcare space. It was called Dr. Vaidya's. It's a 150-year-old Ayurvedic brand representing some great ancient wisdom. But I know him beyond the work. I know him as an individual. He and I actually met many years ago through the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers. We're both young dads. We both have keen interest in these new racket sports. So I won't wait another second. Arjun Vaidya, welcome to the long game. How are you, man?
Pleasure. Excited for this, and I get an hour to question you as much as I've always been questioning you. I know that every time we meet, I keep asking you, is this better than this? Is this a fad? Is this a rumor? Should I do this? So we're going to open up that conversation to more people now, and my curiosity to you will become public.
No, absolutely. So for those who aren't familiar with the show format, we get each of our guests to invest their time by getting thoroughly, comprehensively checked in as many parameters as we can. Arjun was very kind in giving us that time, and we're going to be unpacking that science on air.
And I don't know the results. So
he doesn't know the results. That is right. I've scared him. I've scared him to think that the numbers are much harsher than they might be. But before we jump into that, something I ask all the guests on the long game, which is, if I was your fairy godfather, if I was a genie in the lamp and you had one wish, what wish would you like me to solve from a health and a longevity perspective?
Look, I think there are many things I want to do from a fitness perspective, but in the short term or medium term, I'm doing HYROX in Bombay in September.
And you've done HYROX before?
I've done HYROX 4 times before.
4 times before. Okay, so...
But it's a big delta in time. So my best timing in doubles was 1:25. I want to shave off at least 10 minutes of that.
Okay.
Which is a lot of time.
So, all right. So for all the viewers, if you're a young, entrepreneur, driven, ambitious individual and looking at HYROX as a potential sport and sharing the ambition of getting onto a podium, then I think this is the show for you. You're in the right place. So stay with us. We're going to unpack the science of Arjun and see how we can get him onto...
Yeah, it's just a flag they give you at the end, but it's a flex.
It's a flex, I'm sure. LinkedIn, Instagram, all of the audiences enjoy that. So Arjun, usually what happens is, we typically divide the show into 3 sections. We have a section called Measured, we have a section called Understand, and then we have a section called Optimize. I've adapted that slightly for our conversation today because of the challenge that I sort of knew you were going to be going for. So what I've done is that we're going to look at the human frame through the lens of HYROX. So if we want to put Arjun Vaidya on the podium of Mumbai HYROX, what is it that your body has to achieve or do to get you there? And we're going to be focusing on 6 major systems for the conversation today. Now, the body has 11, but we're just going to be focusing on 6 for today's conversation. The first system is going to be all around airflow. So ultimately getting oxygen in through the lungs and into the blood. The second system we're going to be looking at is your heart. So how well your heart contracts to push blood throughout the system and ultimately get that oxygen to the tissues where it needs it the most. Then we're going to be focusing on muscle. Muscles are going to be contracting. We have to generate force. So how can we optimize that for you over the next few months? The fourth system is your metabolic system, which is how effectively does your body create energy in order to do the things that you want to be doing through the tournament. The fifth is fuel. So looking at macronutrients and also more specifically for you, micronutrients as well, so that your body is well optimized through that. And then the last, which is one of the most important, is recovery. So sleep, rest and recovery and repeat. So what do we need to do to help you to sleep, to recover and perform better as well? All right. So that's going to be our framing for you.
I have lots of questions.
I'm sure you will. And as we get into the data, I want the questions to come because remember, I think you are representing many of the viewers and followers at home. So ask it on their behalf as well so that we can go through this. Okay, so before we get into understanding your health metrics, I wanted to ask you a few questions so that I can get to know you a bit better and the audience can as well. Now, we know you publicly through the lens of entrepreneurship, right? You've built, exited a fantastic business. You're now a prolific investor through V3 Ventures. You're on idea bars as well, investing in many companies and startups across the country. What was the journey of entrepreneurship like for you, the good and the bad? Help us understand some of those aspects of building and exiting.
Yeah, look, I think that if I remember the journey, I remember it as a grind. And I still, because I've been an entrepreneur, I wouldn't equate the stress and the grind of an entrepreneur with that of an investor.
Yeah.
Of course, I do still put in the hours because that's how my body is programmed. But that was mentally, emotionally, and physically a grind. And you'd feel your body becoming sluggish, becoming slow, becoming tired, long flights, bad timing of flights. You'll optimize for, I'll take the 5 a.m. flight and come back on the 11 p.m. flight so I don't have to pay for a hotel. Because of course, that's a grind, right? And so I remember that as the journey of entrepreneurship. The positive was that we built a dream and we did very well with that dream and eventually were able to sell it.
Yeah.
The negative was that, I think I lost a lot of mental as well as physical strength that I had before that journey. And I think after I exited, it was a lot about decompress, reprogram, etc., all of that. But whenever I do it again, and I'm doing it as a VC now, I have long hours. I won't let my physical health, emotional, it can go up and down, etc., all of that, depending on the situation you're in. But those change faster. But physical health, you can really abuse yourself. And so that's one thing that I tell entrepreneurs as well. When I'm investing in a founder or spending time with a founder as well, I end up asking a question. What do you do outside of work?
Another thing I really wanted to ask you was you've built one of the best known brands from sort of a holistic, ancient India representative. And there's a certain dichotomy which emerges from that because we're having a conversation around precision health and modern medicine to some degree. How do you sort of rationalize those two aspects in your brain and what's the opportunity you think for these two spheres to play with each other as we sort of go forward from here?
And I think the travesty, and my grandfather was a big proponent of it. He was probably one of the few Ayurvedic doctors who talked to allopathic doctors. The travesty is that neither want to open up and talk to the other. And I think there's a conversation to be had. Look, I think modern medicine, people saying Ayurveda is bad is completely wrong. And people who are believing in the natural scheme of things to say that modern medicine is bad is also wrong. There are bad actors on both sides, right? People say, oh yeah, Ayurvedic medicine, it has too many metals and so you can't consume it. No, that is people who don't follow the regulation have an overuse of metals in Ayurvedic medicine. Does every Ayurvedic medicine have metals? No. Ayurvedic medicine have metal oxides, bhasmas, right? So I think that bad actors will exist on both sides.
Right.
There are spurious products even in modern medicine, right? Like I just got sent David Bar, for example. Someone got it from the US and I've always wanted to try it. Because we don't have access to it. And then I put a photo saying like, I tried this. And then someone sent me an article saying, actually the company has been sued because what they put on the label is not the reality. So there are bad actors everywhere. I think taking the bad actors out, a conversation needs to be had.
So what trends do you get excited about now in sort of the health space? What do you think over the next 18 months are going to be big ticket
Look,
swings?
I think that this is the first time in India, in my life, that preventive supplementation has become mainstream. Protein is the beginning of the journey, and the fact that everything is becoming protein enriched or protein fortified became clear to me when Amul started putting protein content on their products.
Correct, right.
When they do that, it's mass. Now, everybody is asking which protein are you having? Is plant better for you? What is gut friendly? What's not gut friendly? What is cleaner? Should I have isolate or concentrate? That means that conversation is becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
But I think everybody now wants to have a supplement stack. They're saying, oh, are you having omega-3? Are you consuming fish oil? Magnesium has now become mainstream for recovery. People are saying, oh, are you having D3, B12, etc., all of that. So I think that is the next wave that I'm excited about.
Okay, very good. What does a day look like in the life of Arjun Vaidya? Just take me through morning to sleep. What does that look like? Timings, be as detailed as you want. It'll help me unpack some of the metrics as we go later on as well.
So I'll say that wake up is between 6:45 and 7:15.
Okay.
6:45 would be if there is a paddle game at 7:15. Otherwise, 7:15 I'll wake up with my daughter. Every day starts with some physical activity. Every weekday. Weekends may be exceptions, but it's either paddle or a run or HYROX training in the gym.
Yeah.
Some physical activity. Come back home by 9:30. Grab breakfast, which is 2 toasts and 2 yellows and 4 white eggs. Go to the office. By the time I reach the office, I'm feeling a little bit drained. So I have electrolyte.
Okay.
Lunch is between 1 and 1:15. It's usually rice or some non-gluten carb with a protein, which is chicken or paneer. And then continue the day. The biggest challenge for me is 4 to 6.
Okay.
That time I just eat anything. I should be eating a fruit, but I get hungry. I have some ragi chips. I have some chas. I have anything.
Right.
At that time. And that is the big mistake. And then dinner is usually 8 o'clock. And again, it's some protein, maybe fish, maybe chicken, something like that with some non-gluten carb. And that's the end of the day then.
And bedtime?
So sleep would be between 11 on a good day and 12 or past 12 on a bad day.
Okay. So when we get to the recovery system, we're going to talk a lot about sleep because it sounds like that's an area we really need to sort of optimize for you. Where do you see Arjun Vaidya in 20 years? What's sort of the medium-term goal?
I want to be physically active. When my kids are in their 20s, I want to be able to play paddle with my daughter or run with my daughter, go on my dream would be like, can I do a half marathon with my daughter?
Right.
Or a HYROX with my daughter?
Yeah.
Or play a above 40, below 40 mixed paddle tournament with my daughter and not be the weaker player on the court, right? I want to be there and I want to compete. And I know a lot of people who do that and I want to be that. I'm not going to let that go, hopefully.
All right, so we're going to now get into the meat of this section, which is where we're going to unpack those 6 pillars, fundamentally looking at which of your biomarkers are good and which biomarkers need some attention as well. So system number 1 is airflow, and we start there because that's where the journey begins. It's the journey of the lungs, ventilating to bring air into the body, and with that air comes oxygen, and with that oxygen allows us to do everything we need to do. Now, this is the one system for you which we probably had the least amount of data. Now, ideally, I'd want to have a lot more information here, but let's see what we have. So there's a childhood history of asthma. I've seen
very, very serious
significant asthma, and I've also seen on your LinkedIn posts, especially when the air gets bad, you're one of those vocal voices in India to try and get people to make some change. So clearly that affects you and affects many other people as well, listening as well. We did see in your blood results, there's a blood marker on the immune system called the eosinophil, which is a white cell specifically that gets activated when there's an allergic response in the body. And oftentimes people who have atopy or allergy, especially bronchial like asthma, tend to have higher numbers, and your numbers were on the high side. So there's clearly an underlying bubbling effect happening where there's this sort of trigger response, especially to poor airway. So look, I wish I had more information around the respiratory system. Certainly some suggestions that I would like to do here is some skin prick testing to identify clear allergies, number one.
How do you do that? What is
so
that?
that's any dermatologist to be able to do that. It's usually done on the back of the arm or on the back, and they sort of prick your skin with a bunch of needles. Each needle is inoculated with a particular allergen, and it creates a small wheel around it, and based on the size of the wheel, we're able to tell how significant that particular allergen is and identify whether those allergens are there at home, remove them, or avoid them, right? Those are some common things.
Food-based allergens?
Food-based, it can be environmental-based. There's a whole bunch of different things that can be done. Food-based allergies can be done on a blood test, which is what we did for you, which we'll talk about when we get into the nutrition pillar as well. All right. So the second system is about the heart. And heart for me is one of the most important organs in the body because it's the seat of every sort of minute by minute, second by second pumping. Beyond the pump, there's the blood, and beyond the blood, there are the vessels. So it's an entire system, the cardiovascular system, which is important for taking that oxygen, transporting it on the red blood cell to the end tissue, which is where energy is required. Now, we did some very thorough testing on you, especially when we looked at your cholesterol markers, knowing the family history. And even at this young age, Arjun, there are some cholesterol markers which are high. Right, for a 34-year-old, these numbers shouldn't be there. So the two big ones that I want to draw our attention to, the first one is something called lipoprotein small a, LP little a. Have you tested that before?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, so lipoprotein small a is it's almost like you can consider it as a genetic test for us to know how significant your body tends to deposit very sticky forms of cholesterol. So it's a lipoprotein molecule. It's genetically passed on. It changes very little through life. So it can actually be used as a very effective screening test for people. And what it tells us is the aggressiveness that we need to manage cholesterol in an individual. So if your LP little a is high, and the cutoff is 30. Yours, by the way, is 117. So it's a very high LP little a.
30 is the
upper range of normal. Yours is 117, right?
And can it be reversed?
Currently, there are no clinically available medications to reverse that. In research right now, there are, especially in Europe, there are some molecules, the CPET inhibitors, which I think will hit the market in about 2 or 3 years, which will bring down LP little a values. Right now, there's nothing.
So lifestyle, what can you do then?
Lifestyle, we have to be more aggressive in how we manage the high cholesterols, right? So because your cholesterols are also high, especially the worst ones, so the LDL-C particles are high, the ApoB particles are high. So we need to engage with a lifestyle-first approach to bring those down. That'll be better nutrition, more effective intermittent or calorie restriction, and also some exercise to burn more fat.
So for someone who I'm physically fit, I eat reasonably clean, etc., all of that.
Yeah.
What would a change that you would recommend be in my life? Because maybe I'm just doing the wrong things.
Yeah. So I think if we were to really unpack the amount of carbohydrates.
And can this be
all of this is reversible, except the LP little a. The other markers are completely reversible. Okay, so that's the first important point, right? The second important point is we should always try and take a lifestyle-first approach. If that can't be managed, then we can talk about lipid-lowering agents and medications and drugs.
And lifestyle-wise, what would you say to change all of these things?
I think you're probably consuming a little bit too much carbohydrate in your day-to-day, right? When we looked at your breakfast, you said 2 toasts in the morning, there was rice at lunchtime, there was probably some other rotis and rice in the evenings. I don't know what's happening in that 4 to 6. I'm a little worried in terms of what those snacks could be.
Banana chips, like.
Yeah.
What else would you say? Change in nutrition.
Change in nutrition. The other thing which can be effective in young men is calorie restriction. So this is where you extend the amount
is
of
it
time that you're
intermittent?
fasting. Another way is intermittent fasting. I prefer the term calorie restriction because ultimately that's the more important goal, which is reducing the gross amount of calories that you
1600
consume.
or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. 16 to 1800 for a period of time. The easiest way people find is to intermittently fast, but people misunderstandingly skip breakfast, which is the important meal of the day, especially for someone like you that's exercising in the
So
morning.
you say do breakfast, skip dinner.
Exactly. Eat like a king in the morning, but then eat like a pauper at night. So have an early dinner, have a light dinner, have a dinner which is leaning towards proteins and fats and less on carbohydrates. The other marker which is high for you is an inflammatory molecule called HSCRP, highly sensitive C-reactive protein. The point here is that your body is inflamed. And it's not an acute inflammation like you would get if you scratch yourself or if you nick yourself shaving or if you have a acute common cold. This is a chronic background systemic inflammation which is happening at a low level, which is the more dangerous form of inflammation in the body. So when the body is inflamed and there is a high cholesterol load, this combination is what's dangerous because that inflamed blood vessel wants to put cholesterol to try and soothe it, appease it, and cholesterol will infiltrate and grow and the plaque will build over a period of time. So I'm happy we've caught this at this sort of young age where we can do something actively about it because in many people, this is just niggling away under forever. 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades later,
And the slow burn is the
it's a
worst thing,
slow
right?
burn, and they suddenly wake up, chest pain, and then they've got this clogged artery and they have to be rushed and get a stent put in, right? So it's good that you've had this testing now because we can do something about it. Okay, so Arjun, the third pillar that we want to focus on for you is the fuel pillar. And we spoke a little bit about the macronutrients earlier, especially when we want to try and recalibrate away from carbohydrates towards better proteins and fats to bring your cholesterol numbers down. But I want to draw our attention to a specific micronutrient that we found very low levels in your blood, which is your vitamin D3. So you have a level of 12, which is incredibly low.
And what is the right level? 30, right?
At a bare minimum, I like to see a number 40 to 60. For someone who is pushing the body as much as you are, I would like that
And if I
number
have
to
these
be
shots for 8 weeks, it'll
60
get
to
solved?
90. At this sort of level, shots or injectables, honestly. And the reason...
And if you go for the injectables, it's solved instantaneously?
It absorbs much better. It's an IM injection. You probably need to have 2 to 3 injections to bring your levels up. And then you can go into a maintenance dose from that point in time. The reason why I got even more concerned for you specifically, Arjun, is because apart from just measuring your blood, we also put you into a DEXA scan, which looks at your bone health. And most of your long bones were fine, but on your left forearm, the bone quality was poor. Have you ever had an injury to that left forearm?
This humerus bone is...
Not
completely-
humerus, I'm talking about the ulnar and radius down here.
The humerus is broken and there's a plate in there.
Okay, all right. So the bone quality at the distal end of the 2 bones in your left forearm is low, which for a young man shouldn't necessarily be the case, especially if you've not had an injury there. And this sort of goes hand in glove with low vitamin D because D3 as well as calcium are very important for bone
So the recommendation is
synthesis.
just get the injection.
My recommendation would be to have a few shots of injections to bring that level up.
And how would you do that? You have it once a week or...
Once a week for 3 weeks and then go on to a maintenance dose.
And how does one get such an injection? I don't even know how to do it.
It's a commonly available over the counter, or the doctor would prescribe a...
But you got to get someone to do it?
You have to get someone to give it for you. A nurse or your GP can give you the injection.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is probably a good time to mention some of the food allergy tests as well. So we took a sample of your blood and we looked at specific antibodies called IgG, antibodies to specific food items. And there were 3 which highlighted themselves above all others, which I wanted to draw to your attention. Actually 4. Almonds, cashew nuts, whey, and yeast. These were 4 which spiked in your blood. So do you eat a lot of these 4 items?
I have whey or yeast protein every day.
Okay.
Not so much almonds and cashew nuts. And so that means I switch to plant protein?
So this could be a cause for the inflammation. The nice thing in today's world is there's a variety of options on the protein side.
But almond and cashew then cut.
Almond and cashew, if you have it, you can cut for sure. And there are plenty of other nuts and the other nuts.
I don't need it. I can cut those.
So the key takeaways for you, Arjun, from this pillar was number one, D3. We need to correct for that and do it soon. The second is that there were certain food items that we need to cut and certain food items that we need to avoid. Okay. And for all our viewers watching online, these are all tests that can easily be done through a blood test. You can measure your micronutrients, vitamin D3 and B12 being amongst the most important ones, because a lot of us in India are deficient in these two very critical vitamins and micronutrients. And then the food allergy test, which is again a blood-based test, can be done so that you can identify for yourselves which are the food items which may be leading to some gut irritation and inflammation, and avoid and restrict those foods for a period of months to then bring that level down. Okay, my fourth pillar for you is the metabolic system, which is essentially how your body creates energy in the cells. And this is really important because without energy, we can't do many things. So we measured many different blood markers for you, and the two data points that I wanted us to focus our attention for this pillar for you was number one, your HbA1c, which is a 3-month indication of how well your body manages glucose. Yours is beginning to creep up. You're at 5.7, which is the cutoff threshold for pre-diabetes.
Okay? Wow.
The cutoff threshold. Now, we can...
What is pre-diabetes?
So pre-diabetes, so you can think about diabetes as a spectrum. Okay, it extends from, we used to call it type 1 in the old days, and type 2, which is basically diabetes without insulin, and diabetes where there's some insulin resistance. So that's sort of the spectrum. But most of us who live in India, we tend to be having the type of diabetes which is where we're resistant to the effects of insulin. So our bodies are just consuming so much carbohydrates that the insulin that's created by the pancreas gland becomes more and more resistant. The good news for you is your fasting insulin was entirely normal. So you're not quite at the resistant level just yet. It's just showing that, once again, there's a little bit too much carbohydrate in your system, right? So you're not resistant to the insulin, you're just consuming a little bit too much carbohydrates. And I think the underlying hypothesis is that 4 to 6 p.m. snack. We need to do something about that and get a little bit smarter with that. This, by the way, is translating to a body fat percentage of 29.5%, right? For you, a healthy number would be between 18 to 22%. If we talk about having a six-pack, we're talking about numbers 10. About 10 is a bit on the low side. I think 12, 14 is...
So you got to go half.
You got to half that over a period of a year or 2 years. And the
best long
way...
Journey.
It's a long journey. It's a long journey. Hence, you're on the long game. But it's a long journey. And, of course, we can do that through better nutrition, more specific types of exercise. But for me, I think the biggest takeaway through all the learnings we're having together, because of the high cholesterol levels in the blood, because of the high body fat percentage, because of the high HbA1c, is that you're exposing your body to a little bit too much carbohydrate. You're burning a lot, which is fantastic, but you're putting a little bit too much carbohydrate, and then we need to pull back on there. Okay, Arjun, we're going to now go on to the fifth pillar, which is muscle. Muscle is, of course, going to be a really critical factor for you to achieve that goal of a HYROX podium finish. And when we look at muscle, we tend to look at it through the lens of, are you consuming enough substrate? Are you consuming enough protein? Is that substrate having the opportunity to be converted into muscle through the act of hormones and enzymes? And then finally, are you laying down enough muscle in your body? So the good news is that for step 1, are you consuming enough protein? Yes, we can see that. Your blood protein levels are very good. Your blood albumin levels are very good. So there are telltale signs that you're consuming a healthy amount of protein for what your body requires. The second is, do you have the right amount of hormones? Which actually you do. Your total testosterone values are very good, 595. Your free testosterone values is very good at 24.5. And some of the precursors of that are very good as well. So I'm happy with the body's ability to convert, to build. Where we are losing out on is the actual amount of muscle mass that you have. So I know before we started the show, we spoke about muscle. And if we were to do this maybe 3 years ago, it would have been a different picture. Your muscle mass today is at 49.5 kilograms of your overall body weight, which is a few kilos less than what it should ideally be. That's number one. So we need to keep investing.
And what would the right amount be? I think I'm 71 kilos
Yeah,
or
so
70
we would
kilos.
ideally want to recalibrate towards reducing the overall amount of fat because your body fat percentage is high.
29 should become 20.
So that's a percentage, that's not kilograms. So the 29% should become 20 to 22%.
No, 20. Let's go for 20.
Let's go for 20 over 6 to 12 months. And the muscle mass, which is...
And that will be cut by reduction of carbs.
Reduction of carbs.
And calorie restriction.
And calorie restriction can be two powerful tools for you to use because you're burning a lot in the day-to-day. And the aspect of muscle can move from 49.5 towards 50 to 51. A healthy male with a good hormone and eating the right amount of protein can expect to gain about 1 kilogram of muscle in 3 to 4 months. So that's sort of the way you can look at this. So over 6 to 12 months, there's no reason why.
But it more worrying is the body fat percentage.
Is the body fat percentage, the cholesterol, the inflammation, the metabolic health. It's all sort of coming together. It's a cocktail coming together. So we can work towards building greater muscle.
And this will come through strength training.
This will come through strength training. This will also come through better recovery because what we also found, we measured, and we do this a lot with our high performance athletes. So all the IPL cricketers that we work with, the Olympians that we work with, there's a much more extensive barrage of molecules that we study to look at muscle injury and repair. And we did some of that for you because of how much you're pushing your body. And we saw that the muscle strain protein, a protein which is released into the blood when the muscle is strained and tearing, which we call CPK, is actually quite high. So it's showing that you're tearing and working that muscle hard, but you're not allowing it enough of an opportunity to recover. And if you don't, there's this old phrase which is muscle is not built in the gym, it's built in bed, which is the idea that you apply the stimulus in the gym,
but if you don't recover, then
you have to recover. It's a critical component. Right? Yeah. And that's a great takeaway for everyone at home watching, which is you can be hitting the gym 4 or 5 times a week. You can be eating the right amount of protein every day. You can be optimizing for your hormones, whether you're male and testosterone, where it's a female and it's estrogen and progesterone. You can have the right cocktail mix of hormones. But if you're not allowing your body the time to recover, replenish, and rebuild, you're never going to achieve the outcomes that you want to. And it's a beautiful segue then to our next pillar, which is recovery. So tell me about what you do today for recovery.
Random.
Okay.
So I think sleep is, I take the whole week, maybe it's like a 5 to 6 hour average.
Okay.
Which is well below. I know I need 8. I don't think I can get to 8:45, but I need 8. And then.
And are you using something to track your sleep?
I use the Whoop.
You use the Whoop device. Usually, when I have these conversations with athletes, we divide it into there's passive recovery, which is, let's say, the time you spend in bed, the sleep. But then there's active recovery, which is the toolkit, which is expanding day by day. It's the micronutrients that you discussed, like omega-3, like magnesium, like D3, like B12. My philosophy, Arjun, is very simple. Do the basics first. If you haven't got your house in order, there's no point trying to build a structure on top of that.
Sure, get the house in order first.
And what do we mean by this? Everything we spoke about today. This is polishing. So focus on your sleep and your recovery, right? Eat the right fuels. Fix your micronutrients. Live in an environment which is conducive to you being able to thrive. Ensure that you're getting those human connections. So all the basic pillars of life, and then you can try all the fancy innovations thereafter. But I think the biggest takeaway from me going through your research, your data, and through the conversation we've had, and for everyone watching at home, is that we should be much more planned and structured when it comes to our active recovery. And what are some of the things we can do? Massage once a week is something we can build into our day-to-day routines.
And sauna and steam is also good for body fat and stuff, or no?
So sauna primarily can help manage detoxification, which will naturally lead to a better metabolic response from the body. Using it as a weight loss modality, I haven't seen any data to suggest for that. So those were the 6 pillars. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions on recovery.
Yeah.
Like, some people say cryo is good. Some people say ice plunge is better. What is better? Is it?
So when it comes to cold, it's a function of how that cold is being applied to the body and what is the response that you're looking for.
Because I find cryo much easier when I go into a cold pool, and
Yes.
I'm talking about sub 6 degrees.
Yes.
Because that's when my bones hurt, right? Because
Yes.
it's really contracting.
Yes.
And when I go into cryo minus 110, I don't feel it the same way.
Exactly. It's because of the way heat is being transferred. So when you're
And it's touching your body versus not,
yeah,
right?
so when you're in a body of water, you've got that cold water in touch with every single thermoreceptor on your skin, and the heat is being dissipated very different than when you're standing in an air environment. Heat transfers much slower than when it's when you're in submersed in water. So a cold shower again will have a very differential effect. Cold showers and face plunges are very effective for managing bad stress, particularly because you want to, let's say, get a dopaminergic drive and feel good. But if you're trying to get a recovery component, then immersing in cold water is a more effective way. Yeah. So 3 major takeaways from our conversations, and I'll divide it into exactly the same framework as I do for all the guests that we have on the long game. Arjun, the first is what you must do. So this is the one thing that you have to leave this door doing, and that is fixing your vitamin D3 level.
Take the shots.
Take the shots. You will see the benefit on your bone health, on your muscle health, on your immunity, on your energy levels. It'll just make you feel very different, right? So that's your must do. The second thing is what is good to do. And the good to do action for you is bringing your cholesterol under control. And because of the confluence of the cocktail, as you said, cutting carbs is going to be the most effective.
Cutting carbs and calorie restriction.
Exactly. It'll bring your LDL and your ApoB down. It'll hopefully bring your visceral fat and your body fat percentage down. And we'll start to see some better cardiac markers through the long run and A1C scores as well. And the last is what the elites do. And for them, from them for you, it's structured active recovery. Right.
So first passive as well. I gotta get
fix the sleep for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just be a little bit more mindful with how you manage recovery from a day-to-day basis. Okay, Arjun, so that brings us to the end of the long game. I have one last question for you, which is that HYROX, we understood, was your short-term challenge. But what does winning the long game of health and longevity look like for you?
Look, I think I said, I maybe hinted at it or I talked a little bit about it. I think that aging is a natural process. It happens to all of us, etc., all of that. But I don't want to be the guy who can't be physically fit and be there for my kids when they are growing up. I loved the fact that for a short period of time, my dad and I used to have competitive squash games. It was amazing until I started beating him and then it went away.
Yeah.
I want to do that with my kids.
Right.
I want to be the dad who's able to look good at my daughter's graduation. I want to be the dad who's able to dance and look young at my daughter's weddings. I want to be able to continue this from 34 to 64.
Well, look, I know you spend a lot of time going through the tests, obviously coming here, being with us. This is something I'm sure will create a lot of value for people watching at home, entrepreneurs, founders, young dads, young parents, people who are wanting to push their bodies. So Arjun, thank you very much for being on the long game.
Thank you.
All right, so before I let you leave, let me summarize the conversation we've just had. So Arjun was a guest on the long game today. And he represents, young, energetic entrepreneur, founder, busy family man, father of 2 young kids, excited about paddle, pickle, and HYROX. And if that sounds like you, then you need to really be looking and taking notes for my 5 next takeaways. So, tip number 1, If you're in a leadership role, you need to track recovery in the same way as you track performance. I think one of the biggest takeaways we had out of today's conversation was there was a lot of emphasis to training, sport, playing, but not enough emphasis on the recovery itself. Not just passive recovery through sleep, but active recovery through specific interventions like sauna, contrast therapies, and ice baths. Tip number 2 was that heart health is best managed before symptoms appear. Here was a classic example of a young Indian male who has a family history of heart disease. He spoke about his father's recent bypass and stenting. And already in this young age of 34, we are beginning to see in his metrics elevated cholesterol markers, inflammatory markers, and sugar markers, this dangerous cocktail which can lead to cardiometabolic disease. So I recommend that we all get tested, not just through bloods, but also looking at some very specific heart testing, like the carotid intermedial thickness test that we spoke about, the coronary calcium score test that we spoke about, and also a stress test and a 2D echogram as well. Okay, my third tip from my conversation with Arjun today was that A1C, HbA1c, is not just a metabolic signal, it's actually a trend line. It gives us directionality in terms of how an individual's metabolic system, specifically looking at carbohydrate and sugars, are being managed. So check your A1C every 6 to 12 months and also ensure that you're checking for your fasting insulin, your fructosamine, your visceral fat levels, your cortisol levels, your uric acid, so that we can get a complete comprehensive picture in terms of how your metabolic system is doing over the long run. The fourth takeaway was the importance of the respiratory system when it comes to our exercise. Now, we didn't have all the data in front of us today. I would have loved to have had Arjun's VO2 max test and his respiratory function test and his oxygen saturations. These are all critical markers that allow us to understand how effectively the body is absorbing oxygen, transporting oxygen, and utilizing oxygen. So know your VO2 max number in the same way as you would know your heart rate or your blood pressure. You can go into a lab and get it tested, or you can use one of the more commonly used wearable devices on your wrist or on your finger to approximate a number. But it's an important metric for you to know to track your performance and predict your longevity. And the last biggest takeaway for all of us is that performance improves when we optimize our nutrients, but also maximize our micronutrients. Here was a classic case of a young Indian male with deficiencies in common micronutrients, which are critical towards metabolic health and recovery. In this specific instance, it was vitamin D3, something which I see probably in about 85 to 90% of all the individuals. And it was a level low enough that it was beginning to already affect his muscle health and his bone health as well. So check your vitamin D3 levels regularly and correct them. Many variations and formulations available, but optimize for vitamin D3 so that you can enhance your recovery and build your performance. I want to thank you all for investing your time with me today in the long game. You see, the long game for me isn't just about perfection today. It's about building a trajectory for the future. Now, nothing that was said today is meant to replicate a conversation and a consultation with your doctor. If you feel that any of the data points or metrics may be off in your own physiology, please do meet with a registered medical practitioner to get the right health advice that you require. If you found this interesting and you want to find out more about the work we do, please feel free to visit the Humanedge website. I'll put the link below me and also much more in the description to come. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.